Farmers use pesticides on their crops to prevent weeds from overgrowing. Essentially, the pesticides kill the weeds during the early growth of the crop, so that the crop can win the competition over the weeds. They can also help control insects and disease.
According to CropLife Canada, farmers produce $8.3 billion more in crop yields thanks to pesticides. However, what's the price we're paying to use these pesticides?
Statistics Canada states that the number of new cases of cancer has risen from around 86,000 in 1992 to over 146,000 in 2016. A 2018 report by the Canadian Cancer Society states that 1 in 2 Canadians are expected to get cancer in their lifetime, and 1 in 4 are expected to die from it. In 2010, Owens, Feldman, and Kepner stated that pesticide use has been linked to many serious health outcomes, including asthma, birth defects, and developmental disorders. However, the most concerning of these health outcomes may be the multitude of cancers linked to pesticides. They reference a database containing 260 studies linking pesticide use to cancer.
As Magoon, 2006, states, from a biological perspective, it can be assumed that pesticides designed to harm insects can also harm humans. This is because we share a biochemical process with insects. Pesticides are designed to attack these processes in order to harm or kill the insect. Organophosphates and carbamates are examples of commonly used pesticides that are designed to alter the functions of cell differentiation and mitosis.
This influence on mitosis is linked to the development of cancer, as cancer is a disease of mitosis. When the normal function of mitosis is unregulated, it allows the cancer cells to replicate and spread.
As of 2019, organophosphates and carbamates are still legally sold and distributed in Canada.
Even Health Canada recognizes that exposure to pesticides is unsafe and has enacted regulations to limit the exposure Canadians are getting to these dangerous substances. The problem is that the safe levels that have been established may be drastically underestimated, and Nicolopoulou Stamati et al. 2016 has shown that when 2 pesticides are used in conjunction, their synergistic effects actually create more of a problem, even when they are both being used at concentrations Health Canada has deemed to be safe. Additionally, according to Damalas and Elefantorinos, 2011, environmental factors such as temperature, humidity, and wind can increase existing pesticide concentrations, so it's actually quite difficult to predict safe levels. Health Canada openly discusses the use of pesticides on common household items such as toys and even clothes to create longer-lasting products and increase sales. A lucrative motive like this is simply not a good enough one to put our own health at risk.
These same pesticides are subsequently sprayed over forests and beside roads, which can remain in the soil for years. According to Elson Hawes, 2006, a medical doctor and author of Staying Healthy with Nutrition, pesticides will travel not only through air and soil, but into the water as well. This means that the many lakes and bodies of water that surround farms are being contaminated with pesticides. Spring runoff, a sign of changing seasons and new life to many, may also ironically mean increased exposure to harmful chemicals. These water sources are important to many animals, and through the process of biomagnification, fatal levels of pesticide use can occur as larger animals eat smaller animals, resulting in increasing concentrations of pesticides. With this, humans are then ingesting these animals, therefore increasing their risk as well.
Elson Hawes also describes the cumulative effects of pesticide exposures in humans. He states that, even after washing produce, a small amount of residue remains. The more of these products someone consumes, the higher concentration of pesticides they are also consuming. For example, if a person eats 1 apple sprayed with pesticides, they will be okay and experience no adverse health effects. But someone with an increased consumption of apples sprayed with pesticides has additional exposure that puts them at additional risks. As stated by Boyd, 2007, the Canadian maximum pesticide residue limit on fruits and vegetables is 1,400 times higher than that of the European Union. Certain vegetables, such as broccoli and cauliflower, are consumed due to their perceived health and effect on the reduction of cancer. But When these vegetables are sprayed with pesticides, they may actually be causing more harm than good.
According to Statistics Canada, cropland is increasing. It was at 93.4 million acres in 2016, despite increasing urbanization. The reason for this is more land is being converted into cropland from pastures, summer fallow, and unproductive land. This land is often cleared of all trees and low spots and converted into a monoculture of crop. How has the spraying of pesticides affected your ranch?
Well, so I've seen the local neighbor farmer spray his land up to 4 times in a growing season. The spring runoff comes off his land because the land slopes up towards him, and right through the runoff goes right through our land, and there's no controlling that. And it's definitely killed some of our trees, shrubs. It flows right into our dugouts, which feeds our livestock, and right through our pasture and hayland, and the animals are going to be eating it, and I'm sure it's in everything. The pesticides are designed to kill stuff, so we have no control over what's going into our food supply.
Farmers don't just use pesticides in the early growth of their crops, but also as a pre-harvest treatment called desiccation. As cited by Angela Lovell with Grain News 2012, Clark Brenzel, a Saskatchewan provincial weed specialist, explains that desiccation is the spraying of pesticides that will dry out the crop, making it ready for harvest to avoid rain, poor drying conditions, or winter. Brenzel also admits that farmers use glyphosate as a desiccant even when it is not designed for it, a decision that will result in chemical entering the seed. Ken Roseborough with EcoWatch 2016 quoted agricultural consultant Gerald Weeb estimating that 90 to 95% of Manitoba grain farmers do use glyphosate on their wheat as a desiccant. Darren Qualman, a former researcher for Canada's National Farmers Union, identifies a farm income crisis in Canada. Taking into account inflation and the removal of tax-funded farm supports, Qualman, 2017, assessed farm net income and gross revenue of farms from 1926 to 2016. What he found was that due to farming expenses, including manufacturers of equipment, seed, and chemicals, that this gap was so large that from 1985 to 2007, service companies and agriculture input suppliers consumed 100% of farm revenues. 100%. This means that all of farmers' incomes had to come from other income or support programs, simply because farmers' revenues were going straight to the big banks and agribusinesses selling equipment and chemicals. This does not sound like a sustainable pathway for the farmer, or like something that chemical companies would care to change.
When asked about their response to suggestions that pesticides lead to illnesses like cancer and Parkinson's disease, Health Canada does not register pesticides that are known to cause cancer or other illnesses when used according to label directions. According to the Canadian government, all pesticide products are reevaluated on a 15-year cycle with the intention to ensure that pesticides meet standards for the Canadian market. If information arises that indicates that a pesticide poses unacceptable risks, the pesticide will be reevaluated sooner than its 15-year cycle. However, during this reevaluation period, the pesticide is not taken off the market and is still being consumed by Canadians. Clearly, there is evidence that there are unacceptable risks that justifies the need to enact change on a larger scale.
Technology has allowed us to advance the production of more powerful, faster, and stronger pesticides, making us think that more is better, but the reality is we simply don't need this. Based on our findings, we suggest that there be tighter regulation of crop produce before it is sold to Canadian consumers. This includes more transparent labeling of products that have pesticide residue so that consumers are able to make more informed decisions about the products they are buying. For example, if this intervention were implemented, a bag of apples at the grocery store would contain a label consisting of the pesticides that the apples have come into contact with. This would spur consumers to make more informed choices so that in the long run, consumers would be supporting organic farms.
This intervention is not designed to be the be-all and end-all of pesticide use, but rather is a starting point towards what we hope to be, which is a society that promotes organic choices and reduces the incidence of cancer related to pesticides. We have identified 3 key areas of the literature that need to be addressed in order to strengthen the claims and validity of our proposed intervention and end goal. The first is the relationship between pesticide exposure and cancer occurrence, needing further research done to determine whether pesticides are a correlate or a determinant. This will help the issue to be more of a concern to the public and government. Next is more research on the economic impact of reduced pesticide use in relation to reduced healthcare costs and less labor hours lost due to illness. This should be done to back claims for eventual government adoption of new evidence-based policy. Lastly, research should be done to assess the level of care that informed Canadians would have on the issue of pesticide use related to cancer occurrence, and if this knowledge would actually change behavior and consumerism.
This change is equally important for our environment. Steve Kenyon, 2018, explains that creating a monoculture of crop on acres and acres of land is reducing polycultures. Kenyon explains that polycultures create complex root systems and abundant soil organisms like bacteria, algae, and even dung beetles. This supports our water systems and the health of our soil. Kenyon also poses the question of how many species are killed by the creation of monocultures. Insects, birds, spiders, and pollinators also pay the price for our increased crop yields. We are fighting a losing battle. As pesticides increase our crop yields, they perpetuate increased resistance to bacteria, insects, weeds, and crops. Nature is fighting back, and to stay ahead of her, we would need to put even more money towards the big agribusiness corporations and watch as our environment's biodiversity depletes, our chemical-filled water runoff feeds our plants and animals, and we continue to ingest what has proven to increase our cancer risk.